put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. It's an open mic night for photographers. Get ready for 60 minutes of your photography questions in real time with answers from your host, Joe Edelman.
Hey, that's me. How y'all doing, gang? Thank you for joining me for another Wednesday night and another live episode of TogChat. I'm your host, Joe Edelman, and for the next, 60, 90, 70 minutes, we're here to talk about photography. So start putting those questions in the chat window. I've got a few lined up already, but we've got plenty of room to fit a whole bunch more in. And if I don't get any questions, then, like I'm stuck doing a dramatic reading of the B&H catalog or something like that, which that wouldn't be too much fun. So, hey, listen, seriously, thank all of you for stopping by, spending another Wednesday evening. Take a second and check in on the chat window so that I know you're here and know where you're from. Got a lot of people here already. Sven's here, and Ken, and Troy, and Ian, and Robert, and James, and Adam. JR's here. We got a load of people in here. Christopher's here. Mark. Thank you guys again. I really, really appreciate it. So you guys know that last week I was down in Fort Worth, Texas for the Fort Worth Camera Photo Fest. Really awesome event. So for those of you that are in or near or around Fort Worth, I would highly recommend that you check this event out. It's not over yet. You missed me. That was last Friday, but it runs until the 21st of this month. They have got events that happen literally all over the Fort Worth area. I think today they were at the Fort Worth Zoo. They had skateboarders out. A bunch of stuff still to come. They've got a full schedule of events here. And the best part of this, gang, the stuff is really reasonable in terms of price to be able to attend. My event was only $10 to attend. We had a really good crowd. Last Friday night, I got to go to Billy Bob's Rodeo, which was really cool. It was just neat to see it. Worst lighting in the world, like incredibly bad lighting, but it was really cool to see it. And then the event's wrapping up this coming weekend. I know that Olympus visionary Tracy McGlosky is going to be there doing her maternity thing, which is really cool. They've got a train ride coming up, macro photography, even an event at Texas Rangers versus the Yankees. So I highly encourage you guys to check that out. And while we're talking about educational opportunities and chances to meet me and or learn from me, let me just give you a heads up. Oh, in fact, here, you know what, guys, before I forget, let me give you the link to that Fort Worth Photo Fest so that you have it. I'm going to put it in the chat window here, okay? There's a link for Fort Worth Photo Fest. You can check it out. And another event, if you're in the Midwest, coming up this June, it's, I believe, 23, 24, 25, or 24, 25, 26. There it is, June 22nd through the 24th. I was close, right? Okay. It's called Out of Chicago, and it is in Chicago. An amazing lineup of speakers. Right at the top there, we've got Scott Kelby and Aaron Nace that are going to be speaking there, along with Olympus visionary Scott Bourne, who is like Mr. Birdman. Like, his stuff is just incredible. And for those of you that may not know it, Scott Bourne is also the North American president of Skylum, which is a software company that brings us Luminaire. And if you're not paying attention to Luminaire, you need to be paying attention to Luminaire. In fact, for those of you that are interested in Luminaire, stay tuned, because I'm going to give away a free license in tonight's show for the Luminaire 2018 software. Eric Parr, if you guys liked my light painting stuff that I did for the background, Eric Parr, man, he does the most amazing light painting stuff. Very different than what I do, but really super cool. Just loads and loads of people and loads of topics. Travel photography, fine art, black and white work, street photography, you name it. There's this guy, Joe Edelman, there, going to be talking about portrait stuff and doing my thing. Levi Sim, another guy that you may know from Photo Focus. Just a really awesome lineup of people. Wildlife photographers, landscape travel people, tether photography, and equine photography, you name it. This event has photo walks, all kind of cool stuff. So the website for that one, I'm going to give you two pieces of information here. So if there's any chance of you making it, make sure you check this out. So the first one is the link to their website. There it is. And the second one is, if you do have the opportunity to come, when you register, you can save yourself $50. Use that code Edelman50 and you get $50 off the cost of the registration. So hope to see some of you there. I'm looking forward to that event. It's going to be pretty cool. Wow, somebody here from Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. Good for you. I grew up in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. So, Nerd45, am I still planning to interview the angry photographer at some point? Yes, absolutely. You guys have my word. I am going to be doing the interview with the angry photographer, also Photo Joseph, who I had scheduled last week. Bottom line, guys, I blew it on the interview stuff. I thought I had the technology worked out. I did not have it worked out properly, and then I doubled down on that whole mistake. I upgraded the software from a company called Wirecast, which is this ridiculously expensive software that I use, and it just created a whole nother set of problems. And traveling last week, didn't have the time or the bandwidth to be able to work it out. I shot Monday and I shot today, so those are all my excuses. But yes, interviews are coming. I've also got some other really cool people lined up that have agreed to do interviews, and going after some, really, really, really big names. And when I say big names, I don't mean like internet YouTube names. I mean big names in terms of photographers who are historically significant. I want you guys to really be able to get some really good background. So we're going to have fun with people like Ken and some other YouTubers and that kind of stuff. Absolutely. But we are also going to be digging into some really hardcore people that have spent their life really making a difference in the world with their photography, and some of them, as I mentioned, really do truly have some historical significance. So I'm looking forward to that. So Eric Big Easy says, Joe, I've been fighting the idea of putting together a book of street photos. Any advice and tips to get started? Just do it. Nike had the right answer, right? Just do it, Eric. The more you think about it, the more you find reasons not to do it. Just do it. That's the best advice I can give you. We've all got projects like that we would like to do. I have a couple of my own, and I've got 50 excuses for everyone why I never get to it. The reality is, for me, I just keep prioritizing other things over it, which I'm not saying that makes it okay. It's exactly why I never get them done, and the day is going to come where I'm going to regret not having done them. But my advice is just dive in, just get started, because I find that those kind of projects, and you guys hear me do it a lot here on TogChat. Like I'll run my mouth and say, oh, yeah, I want to do this, even though I really hadn't been planning on doing it. But I realized, like, hey, it'd be really cool to do that. Now I said it. Now I'm kind of committed. Like, got to get going, got to get working on it. So sometimes that's the best way. You just got to do it, man, and that's it. Like, Christopher just says, you didn't blow it. You tried something, it didn't work. Try again, and that's my thing, gang. It's like, I am not afraid to break stuff. There's an entrepreneurial philosophy. Excuse my French, okay? I'm gonna curse. So it's called break shit and move on, right? Like, you gotta try it. It's more productive to be moving forward than it is to be thinking about moving, because all that thinking, the net result is lack of productivity. It's lack of forward motion, and what do you got to show for it then? Nothing. So Gerald wants to know, on the subject of photo books, do you have any recommendation on a good service to use? So I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I don't. I'll give you what background I can give you. So there are, when you talk about photo books, the first thing that you've really got to decide on is like, well, what are we specifically looking at here with a photo book? Meaning a printed book printed on a press, in which case there are print-on-demand companies, okay? Or are you looking for something that you can get printed at a good photo lab now? I mean, let's face it, you can go to CVS, the drugstore, right, or Walmart, and drop off your pictures and actually put together a really nice little bound book, very inexpensively. So, I think the first thing is with the book stuff is you kind of got to, you've got to make the decision, what exactly are you looking to do? I mean, if you're looking to sell these things, then you probably want to look at print-on-demand services and actually print a real book, because that is going to, of course, increase the perceived value of the finished product. I I can't give you any names, I'm sorry, but simply Google print on demand and you're going to find a ton of good information on that. Not only in terms of companies that provide that service, but also in terms of suggestions, ideas, recommendations for, how to do that kind of stuff, how to market it. I do know for a fact there's lots of great tutorials out there. If you're going to actually do like a book and kind of self-publish, there are great tutorials out there about how to register your books with the Library of Congress, how to get an ISBN number, which allows it to get indexed, for the Dewey Decimal Code and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, Google is your friend there. Okay. There's definitely, tons of information out there. Christopher, are there any online photo printing sites more accurate than others if you're calibrated? You know what? I don't do a lot of printing, so that's the full disclosure, right? Let's start there. But I'm very confident answering your question. And the answer that I'm going to give you is I think you're asking the wrong question, right? So when you calibrate for a lab, there are two steps if you're going to do it properly, Christopher. One is, yes, you want your machine to be calibrated, right? So you're going to, use a device like, iStudio or that, which actually I just got a hold of this to set it up and try it out for you guys. So I am going to, give you guys some feedback on this in the coming months. It literally just arrived. I've done nothing with it, and I'm not going to do anything with it for a couple weeks at this point. But I will, get to it. But the point is this. Basically, you're going to calibrate your machine first, right? And you should be doing that anyway. I would advise any of you that are really serious about your work to go ahead and calibrate. It's an extra step, costs you some money to buy the gear, but if you're serious about your photography, it's very worth it. Now, from there, the bigger labs, Christopher, they allow you to download ICC profiles. So like if you're going to use Miller's or, in which I've actually just started using Miller's because I've got a project coming up that I need to use Miller's for. The folks at Olympus have asked me if I would be willing to essentially design a photo album with a whole bunch of my photography that they can print in bulk and provide to their sales reps to show off at trade shows and when they make camera store visits so that people can see, some nice printed images of work that's done with the Olympus cameras, which is kind of cool. I'm excited about doing it. But we're going to print them at Miller's, and they've done a few of these with some of the Olympus visionaries. I'll be using Miller's for the first time, but everything that I've been dealing with so far, not only has it been a great experience, but they provide profiles that you can download so that you are using the proper color profile to match their printing process. In the past, I've used a lab that is not that far from me. It is down in the state of Maryland. It's called Nations Photo Lab. I've had great success with them. They also provide ICC profiles. So the reason why I would say that it's not about one being more accurate than the other, if you're working with a better lab, I'm not even going to say bigger, if you're working with a better lab that provides you with ICC profiles, then you need to install the ICC profiles and make sure that your machine is calibrated, and then you're not going to have a problem. You're going to get great work. And of course, really what you want to also look at, Christopher, is, look at what the lab's return policies are if you're unhappy with the prints, etc. Understand too that a lot of the labs, they offer kind of two versions of the printing. In other words, you can basically send them your file and let them interpret it. You still have to color correct and all that stuff, but they're going to interpret it based on their profiles to give you what they believe is the best print. Or you're going to download their profile and send them a file and basically say, hands off, guys, don't touch it, just print it as is, because you're calibrating your machine and you're using your profile. So by the time I get done this, and another little trick, I will tell you, if you sign up for an account with Miller's, they actually send you an email and give you a coupon that you can order a few prints from them, just like snapshot size, 4x6s. But what they do is, if you send them a couple files, they print them the way you sent them, and then they'll print what they feel is their best version of it, so that you can decide how do you want to work with them. I don't know if other labs do that. They may. I have a feeling that since Miller's does it, probably quite a few labs do it, because Miller's is definitely one of the bigger labs out there. So it would be something that in all likelihood other labs would offer. Maybe you have to ask, but other labs would offer because they want to be able to compete with, a company like Miller's. So Quentin Richardson, I'm a starving artist, and I was wondering what my thoughts are on the Sony a6000 as your first camera. So, Quentin, I think that the a6000 is a really nice camera. I am curious here, just off the top of my head, what does the Sony what's that selling for these days? Let's see here, a6000. So the Sony a6000s are going for like $500 with a lens, or $550 with a lens kit. Yeah, I mean, that's not bad. I think what you need to do though, Quentin, is this. So you guys know, I'm an Olympus guy, and so on one hand, I'm kind of tempted to say to you, look at the Olympus, this and that. Look, bottom line is this: if you're a starving artist, but you're really serious about your photography, okay, I would try and think ahead. Meaning, what camera system would you like to be working with right now? In other words, what camera system, and you may have to do some research, right? But what camera system do you feel is ideally suited for you? This is the system that if I had the money that I really want to be working with. And don't say it's automatically the biggest and the best, because there is no such thing, right? So start there. If it's Sony, fine. If you're thinking, well, I'd love to be working with the Sony a7 III or the A9, whatever. Okay, cool. So then you go backwards. In other words, you find the entry level into that system that you can afford, right? So understand that the a6000 is an APS-C camera. So it's got the, kind of the middle of the three sensor sizes. There's the micro four thirds, the APS-C is a little bigger, and then the full frame. But the good part of it is from the standpoint of, if you're looking down the road at a Sony a7 III or A9 or whatever number Sony's up to by that time, because let's face it, they'll be up the numbers. They change numbers every 18 months. At least the accessories and the lenses that you're going to be buying are going to allow you to continue moving within that brand. So the a6000 is a great little camera. I've owned one several years ago, had a lot of fun with it. I know actually quite a few photographers that are in my Facebook group and also in my Patreon group that use the a6000, turn out some top-notch work. My buddy Manny Ortiz loves his Sony a6000, talks very, very highly of it. So they do great work. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't just look at the idea of what's a good first camera. I would try to look ahead. And when you're just getting started, don't get me wrong, when you're just getting started, Quentin, it's hard because maybe you don't know that much about photography in that yet. But I would try and do a little bit of research in terms of where you think you'd like to be with it. And then from there, go ahead and buy an entry-level camera in that system. But the a6000 is a beautiful little camera. It absolutely is. Tenonix, do you think it's fine that you're still using an Nikon D3100 or should you upgrade? It's fine for my needs at the moment. However, my photos are becoming more professional and used for businesses. So it sounds to me more like you either have gas or feel guilty. I mean, bottom line, Tenonix, if your clients are happy with your work and they're paying you the money that you are asking, and if the camera is doing the things that you need it to do and not getting in your way, then there's nothing unprofessional about it. And then there's no reason for you to be upgrading, right? So you upgrade cameras when the new camera is going to provide you a substantial boost in quality or features or capabilities because of streamlined workflow, etc. Other than that, upgrading a camera, you're simply doing it for the purpose of gas, gear acquisition syndrome, right? And, that's okay. For some people, the true pleasure of photography is the gear. That's okay if that's what your pleasure is. But if we're talking about, business, in business, you're not just going to keep buying gear because you think you need to buy gear, because then you're eating away your profits. You're not making any money. So, you did bring business into this, okay? So that's really where you have to do your juggling. If that D3100 is getting the job done, if your clients are happy, you're getting new clients, then there's your answer. You upgrade really kind of when you need to. That's going to be the key. So, Julie, MPix sends five prints to help you calibrate. Awesome. Good. I would think at this point, a lot of the labs will do that. They'll have some kind of system for you to be able to try out, you know, their processes and that kind of stuff. So yeah, and again, by the time I get done with this project that I'm doing for Olympus with the album, I will gladly share with you guys some of my experiences. There is another German lab that has reached out to me that is going to basically let me use their service to put together a big photo album just to try out their service. And I will share that with you guys and go through it. So from the time that I started these TogChats, I've had a lot of people ask me printing questions, and I just do very little printing. So I'm not going to lie, I'm actually kind of excited to be getting back into it a little bit. And I'm excited in part because there's a learning curve. It's been so long. Things have changed, technologies have changed, you know, even in terms of the color calibration, like this iStudio from a feature standpoint, I haven't used it yet, but from a feature standpoint, this is an awesome little gadget. So I'm really looking forward actually to kind of, you know, relearning that aspect of it. And I will definitely report to you guys once I have some stuff to share. Okay. Biscuit, any experience with astrophotography? You primarily do event photography. You have a 5D Mark IV. You're going on a trip that will be very good for it. Biscuit, I have like, there it is, right there. I photographed the moon a couple times with super low lenses. Like, that's it though. I can tell you, you know, the first names that come to my mind are a few of the Olympus visionaries, because I interact with these guys and I've been, you know, seeing a lot of their work most recently. But I can tell you 3 of them off the top of my head, and I may be missing 1 or 2 that also do some of it. But Peter Baumgarten, Mike Boning, and Jamie McDonald, the 3 of them all do a fair amount of astrophotography. Have some really, really brilliant images. If you visit the Olympus website, in fact, here, I'll bring it up and I'll show you guys. Let's see. And I will tell you this, just because you don't have an Olympus, number one, I'm not trying to sell you an Olympus, and number 2, I will tell you that there's some great resource information here if you're interested in astrophotography. So let me put the URL in first. Okay, so what you want to do when you get here is click on Inspiration up at the top, or mouse over it. And so the first thing I will show you to see the visionaries that I mentioned, if you click on Olympus Pros, when you get to this page, the guys I was mentioning, Peter Baumgarten, Mike Boning, and where is he? There he is. Jamie McDonald. Whoops. Jamie McDonald. These guys I know have done a bunch. It's possible Alex McClure has done some, but so you can check out their profiles there. But the other thing I wanted to show you, since you're looking at trying out astrophotography, while you're over that inspiration tab, click on the Learning Center, okay? And once you're in here, if we scroll down, I believe it's towards the bottom. Hopefully I can find it easily here. You'll find a bunch of astrophotography tutorials and night tutorials, night shooting tutorials and that in here. And some of the stuff, I mean, I'll tell you what, straight up, some of the stuff is kind of Olympus specific, yes. Other stuff is just overall kind of, you know, good techniques. All right. So I would encourage you, you know, check that out. But beyond that, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on the topic, because no, I've done, you know, very, very little of that. Okay. All right, so let's see here. Quentin, should you go to school for photography because all your information has been self-learning, watching my videos, and Mark's as well? Quentin, I'll tell you this. Number one, I didn't go to school for photography. I am completely self-taught, and I am self-taught in a time period where there was no such thing as Google or YouTube, you know, back in the dark ages, like dinosaur stuff. I think the key to whether or not you go to school for photography is a few things. Number one, be honest with yourself, right? If you think that school is going to teach you how to become a photographer, so let's start here. No school anywhere in the world is going to teach you how to become a photographer. All a school can do is give you a curriculum and give you the opportunity to learn. You've got to be willing to take that opportunity and actually work your butt off and learn, and then go put it to use. School itself is not going to teach you photography or make you a photographer. So, you know, you got to be honest with yourself about how you tend to learn and how you, how much you are passionate about it, how much you want to do it. If you are highly self-motivated, if you're the kind of person that, gets focused on something and will stay the course and put in the work and put in the effort, then absolutely, photography is something that you can learn on your own. And there is so much more resource information available today than there ever was. If you are a person, the flip side of it, that finds comfort in getting an A as opposed to an F, who finds comfort in somebody telling you, you have to do this, you have to do that, you're supposed to do it this way, etc. Well, then here's the challenge. You will enjoy going to school for photography, but you will come out of that school as a really crappy photographer, because there's no right or wrong. There's no A, there's no F. There's simply do what you do to the best of your ability and find someone who is going to pay you to do that. That's how you essentially build a career as a photographer. Okay? Boy, we got some really good questions coming in here. So before I get too far ahead, let me go back and I want to do a question that came in a little bit early. So for those of you that may be a little bit new, obviously we start at 6 o'clock every Wednesday night, but the party starts around 5, a whole hour earlier in the chat room. So it takes me about an hour to set this stuff up and get the software all lined up on the screen here and everything ready. So I usually log into the chat room about 5 p.m. Eastern time here in the US. So there are people usually, in the chat room early putting questions in. We have a little discussion. So tonight I had a question come in from Ken Vincent, and it was a two-parter here. Actually, it was a three-parter, but I've got the first 2 parts copied. So let me touch on those first. His question was, I wonder what you mean when you use the term fashion, as in the title of the cellophane video. The video that he is referring to is the video that I posted recently right here. In fact, actually, let me give you guys the link to that in case you want to go watch it afterwards. You can save that one, okay? So, and then he went on to ask, also, what is the difference between fashion and glamour? And then he added, as a follow-up, are your recent videos really portraits of the model? Perhaps it would be more accurate to say that you're using the human face as a canvas for artistic purposes of showing hair and makeup, etc. So this is kind of deep, right? There's a lot of information to unpack here. And then the last comment that Ken posted in on this, so there were 3 comments. I asked him, what would you call them, Ken? Like, I was curious, since he was asking this question, would he call them fashion? Would he call them glamour? Would he call them beauty? Would he call them portraits? What would he call them? So his response was, I think they have strong artistic components, but there's not much emphasis on capturing the essence of the person. I find myself sometimes trying to see past the effects of the makeup or find the person. Cool. So let's unpack that, all right? My response for you, Ken, is this. And what I wanted to do, I did a little quick research here for you before we came online. I went to mw.com. You see it right here. Whoops, let me take that out so you can see me. There we go, okay? And I typed in the word fashion, and I want to show you what comes up in the definition, okay? So it starts out with, prevailing style or dress. So it's basically referring to clothing, spring fashions, et cetera, et cetera. B, this is where I come in. Prevailing custom usage or style. In other words, once you start to get into that phrase style, things are very open to interpretation. They're very generic, etc. So then I also wanted to just make sure that we were kind of getting the whole picture from, finding a common understanding. And I went to portrait. Portrait, a pictorial representation of a person, usually showing the face. So that's also rather very broad and generic in terms of its description, okay? Now, let me tell you a little bit about my working philosophy when I do my shots, and then I will try to give you a defined answer to your question. So if you do a little bit of research and look into a lot of kind of the beauty and the fashion and the really artistic stuff that you see in the magazines, you will notice that frequently you cannot identify the girl at all, meaning her eyes may be closed, she may be looking away, and it's all makeup and, foo-foo and all that kind of stuff. The overwhelming majority of my shots you can see the girl's eyes. In fact, probably 2/3 of my shots, she's looking at the camera instead of looking away from the camera. And if she is looking away, there's still good balance in the eyes. So the girl's there. Now, is it an accurate pictorial representation that is meant to show her personality, who she is, give us some insight into her? No, definitely not. These are not traditional portraits. So what I'm going to recommend that you do, Ken, first is I'm going to recommend that you watch this video. It's a video that I posted about a month back. This was recorded in Las Vegas when I was speaking on the Olympus stage at WPPI. And in the very beginning of this, I'll put the link here in the chat window. In the very beginning of it, I talk about what's a fashion portrait and kind of how I approach it. But to give you the answer, my beauty shots that you're seeing, my fashion portraits, whichever label you want to use, they are definitely not about the girl. So the fact that you're trying to kind of see beyond that and see the girl and all that stuff, that's cool, but that's because of your preference, not because of what I'm trying to shoot, because you're interested in the girl. Who's the girl? What's she like? Okay. I tend to think the same way too, but that's not what I'm doing in these shots. Okay. As far as the use of the word fashion, in other words, you hear me call them fashion portraits frequently. Okay, so they're portraits because they're of people, right? Nowhere does it say in a portrait that you have to identify who the person is or learn something about them. That's one type of portrait. There's many different types of portraits. And if you watch that video about WPPI, you'll actually see a screenshot where I talk about just a sampling of them. And I think there's like 9 or 10 that I show, and there's actually even more categories than that. But I used to refer to these pictures as beauty shots. There's no defined label out there. There's no category, that in the photography world, this is what it's called. They tend to be called beauty shots. For the last 6 months or so, I have been referring to them as fashion portraits. Now, why did I start changing the reference? I started changing the reference for the purpose of being found. Beauty shot, people like yourself, Ken, and the rest of you watching, have probably never gone to Google or to YouTube and typed in the phrase beauty shots looking to learn anything. But you've probably typed in the word portraits as part of a term to look for something. And you may have typed in the word fashion to learn something. So by calling them fashion portraits, more people find them and more people find me. So it's literally a term that I use for the purpose of marketing. Now, in my defense, if you go to Instagram and do a search for the hashtag fashion portraits, you'll find thousands and thousands and thousands of people hashtagging pictures as fashion portraits. There were thousands of people doing that before I started using this phrase 6 months ago. I didn't create the phrase. There's a lot more using it now, but there were plenty of people doing it then. Even if you go to Pinterest, type in the phrase fashion portraits, you'll find tons and tons of people. So it's a phrase that's been out there, loosely defined for a long time. But for me, that's why. It's literally a matter of SEO, search engine optimization, both for Google and for YouTube, because fashion portraits is a phrase that has two very well searched words that people are likely to find me, whereas beauty shots, not as well searched, etc. So now, as far as glamour goes, Ken, here's a Joe rant. This is a mild one, but this is an observation, something that bothers me, but it's also something I participated in. So let me explain. If you go to the dictionary and look up the word glamour and read the definition, it will basically describe the pictures that we saw of the Hollywood stars back in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. The black and white, the really crisp lighting, all that kind of stuff. That's the definition of glamour. But yet, glamour in a practical sense today, when you go to Google or when you go to websites like Model Mayhem or Purple Port, glamour has become how naked is she? That's what glamour has become. In that sense, I simply would say that if you were marketing yourself as a photographer, Dave, and not even necessarily professionally, but if you were setting up a profile on Model Mayhem for the idea of being able to find models to be able to photograph and build your own portfolio, maybe to build a business down the road. If you want to shoot lingerie and swimwear, call it glamour, because that's what they call it. If you want to shoot the old school Hollywood portraits that are actually what are defined as glamour, then you're actually better off simply calling them portraits. So that would be my answer there. So, Quentin, is off-camera flash the key to professional-looking photos? Absolutely not. No. Quentin, go back through some of my videos. I actually have videos where I show you how you can do great portraits with one flash on camera. And by the way, nobody ever said you have to use a flash, right? So no, that's definitely not a correlation that you should be making. So, Biscuit, let's see. Oh, wait, sorry. Let's go up to Al B's question and find Al. Well, I missed the beginning here. Let's find the beginning. So, all right, Tom. I think this started with Tom. Okay. So, Natasha, you have a question about infrared photography. I've never done it, but, God, it's a big Olympus night tonight. Jamie McDonald, who is one of the Olympus visionaries, he has a camera that's converted to do infrared, and he does it quite a bit. So, Google this guy. I'll put his name in here. If you go to the Get Olympus website that I showed you before and follow the links for him, he has done quite a bit of infrared work, and you'll be able to find, a good bit of information from him. So, all right, back to that question that I had there from Tom. What are your thoughts regarding on-camera bounce photography, turning the flash head to a point behind you at certain angles and bouncing it off walls? Neil Van Niekerk uses it heavily during weddings. Fine, Tom. I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for there. I use bounce flash a lot. If you go back through my older videos, I did a couple of videos where I showed how I did portraits with bounce flash. I showed how I did beauty shots with bounce flash. So, there's this really bad thing that kind of historically happens in the education of a photographer. And this is aside from YouTube, which can be really bad. Okay, because if you listen to too many people, you simply get screwed up. You simply do. But I went through this evolution as a young photographer. You start out and you get a flash, and then somebody tells you, yes, but direct flash is not flattering. It's harsh. And so then you learn how to do bounce flash. And then somebody tells you, yes, but bounce flash is too soft and it's too flat, and it creates shadows underneath the insets of the eyes and underneath the nose. So it's ultimately not flattering. And then, you're taught, well, then you got to go for multiple lights and you got to get them off camera and all that stuff. All that's a bunch of crap. It's a bunch of crap. What you have to learn is you have to learn how light works, period. Good lighting is solving problems, just like taking a good picture is solving problems. So I have videos on my channel, if you go back to some of my older videos, that show you doing really great lighting with direct flash, really great lighting with bounce flash. Neil Van Niekerk's an awesome photographer, highly accomplished. So of course he does it, and he can do it. But there's no one-size-fits-all answer. I promise you, there are shots at a wedding where he's not going to use bounce flash, and vice versa. Okay, so it really comes down to, learning how to use it. Okay, Biscuit, you're talking about some guy that did a video that, well, yeah, hello, I did a video like that, guys. Maybe go check out my videos, right? It'd be greatly appreciated. So, Al B, you're about to do corporate events. Take candid event shots, portraits of all participants. You're debating on flash on bracket, wedding style, or flash on a stand with modifier. Thoughts? Al, that is going to depend on a whole bunch of stuff. So it's going to depend on how high-end do the portraits need to be, what are the portraits going to be used for in the end, what's your background going to be like, how much space are you working in, how much time are you going to have to work with a person, are there health and safety factors with putting up a light stand, so if you want the best possible lighting, then take 4 strobes, set up a whole studio, right? But you probably can't do that. So really what you got to do is you got to create the best possible lighting within the confines of what equipment you have available, the amount of time you're going to have with your subject, the amount of space you're going to have to work with. Do you need to, is it going to be a really chaotic scene where you have to worry about people tripping over things like a light stand, etc.? Obviously, the less equipment you're able to work with, meaning the situation forces you to only be able to work with this equipment, the harder it makes it, and it requires you to be a little bit more creative in your problem solving. But certainly, if you're able to get the flash off camera, that makes it a lot easier. If you're able to get it off camera, that makes it even better yet. You're also going to have a challenge to, as far as the background goes, you're going to let that background go dark. So there's a lot of things to look at. If you're going to do bounce flash, how tall are the ceilings? What color are the ceilings where you're working? So this is why, those are dangerous questions to be answered, Al, because if I'm going to answer that question for you accurately, I've got 50 questions to ask you first, right? So it goes back to the same answer, which I know frustrates people, but lighting an event is no different than lighting a portrait outside. It's no different than lighting a portrait inside. It's no different than doing any lighting. Lighting is lighting. If you haven't done the egg, if you don't practice lighting, you're never going to get it. You're just never going to get it. You're never going to be consistently good at lighting. Lighting is not hard, but it requires practice. It's that simple, okay? It just requires practice. So, there's 50 different variations that I literally, and I'm not exaggerating with a number that big, that we could go through. They're going to impact what you're doing. So without knowing that information, I can't give you a specific answer. Because it's easy to say, well, yeah, put it on a stand, get it way off camera. But I've done events where it's so damn chaotic. If I have a light stand sitting there, somebody's going to trip over or it's going to get knocked over. So, again, it's going to depend on the amount of space, all that kind of stuff. But it also, you got to start at the end. You always have to start at the end. So you're talking about the fact that you're going to do candid events, event shots, and portraits of all participants. So the first thing you have to start with is, what are the pictures being used for? What's the end result? Why do they want these portraits? What are the event shots supposed to look like? And then you work backwards. Solve that problem, right? So you're doing what a lot of people do, Al. Don't get me wrong. You're going at it from the entry, like, oh, I've got to do this and this. No. Go to the end. What are the pictures being used for? Why are you doing this? And then work backwards to solve the problem. And the answers come a lot easier at that point. So that's how I would encourage you to go at it. Okay. So, Al, it's all about thinking, man. You got to think. That's it. So, let's see here. Quentin Richardson, what are good ways to practice lighting? So Quentin, you clearly haven't watched a lot of my videos, man. You gotta go back to my channel. Seriously, the questions you're asking me are things that I talk about in every single video, literally every video. Okay, I show my mannequin, I do the egg. So you need to go back here. Let me bring the channel up, Quentin. Okay, because Quentin, and man, I'm glad that you're here. But let me explain so you know a little bit about me, because I have a feeling you're very new to following me. You are asking what I call lazy questions. And I'm not trying to be a jerk, right? I'm trying to phrase that, because I use that phrase all the time. So believe me, you're not the first person that I've said that to. The point is, you're not thinking it through, all right? And you're asking the wrong questions. Because I could say to you, the best way to learn lighting is, well, just go take lots of pictures, right? And that's actually a good way to do it. But since you're asking me these questions, since I'm on YouTube, let's go back to my channel and watch the videos. You're going to find tons of videos about lighting. I mean, if you want to shoot people, there's a whole playlist, lighting tutorials for photographing people. Start there. But the video you need to start with, Quentin, since you're asking, all the way down here by the bottom, right here, okay? Learn how to see light, remember the egg. I'll grab the link here. I just saw somebody tried, okay? That's where you start. That's the first thing you start. And at the end of the video, it's going to tell you that if you think you understand because you watched the video, you're wrong. You don't understand. The only way you will understand it is if you actually go and do it. I'm not kidding, right? None of you are stupid. So you'll watch the video, you'll grasp the concept. I know you will. But that's not how you learn the lesson. You learn the lesson by actually doing it. You have to go out and you have to do the task, okay? Learning is hard work. Learning requires a lot of effort. It simply does. It simply does, okay? So, Tenonix, I'm hearing a debate go. So, let's see. Where's the question that started this? Tenonix, would you share any of your raw files to allow others to use for editing practice, ensuring that they use appropriate tags to you? Hell no. Why would I do that? So, let's see. But sometimes like editing studio photo may not have access to. No. I wouldn't do that, Tenonix, and it's not about helping other people. Shoot your own, man. Like, and why would you need to edit studio photos if you're not shooting studio photos? So I see the comment thread that's here, but no, I wouldn't give somebody my photos to edit unless I was hiring them and paying them to do it, which I do. But yeah, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. So, Tenonix, if you want to learn photography, don't go find somebody else's photos to work on your photos, okay? Because, understand that it's no different than the film days, gang. Like, if you want to be a photo retoucher, I don't know why you're listening to me in the first place. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad you're here, but why would you listen to me if you want to be a photo retoucher? I don't teach any of that stuff. Listen to Pix Imperfect, listen to, Aaron Nace. If you're wanting to learn photography, it's no different than back in the film days. You learn to take pictures and then you learn how to develop them. Or you spent money and you sent them out. Digital photography is no different. Like, it's unfortunate that younger generations, so here, I'll go ahead and I'll sound like the old guy in the room, okay? But it's really unfortunate that younger generations don't understand that digital is no different than film. Digital files are meant to be developed, right? So if you're going to become a photographer, you learn to take pictures and you learn to develop pictures. Whenever you hear somebody say, oh, no, I don't like to do that Photoshop stuff because I like my stuff natural, basically what they're saying is, I don't know how the hell to do Photoshop or Lightroom. That's what they're saying. It's code, right? They're trying to cover the fact that they're too lazy to put in the effort to learn how to do it properly. Or they're not willing to spend the money to send it off and have somebody else do it. Just that simple. But yeah, you work on your own images, period. And it's not like some moral thing. It's a practical thing. Like, work on your own images. Yeah. So, and certainly the idea that, what was your question there? That you use the proper tags and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, no. So what are you going to do? Why would you need, if I let you work on a raw photo of mine, why would you need to tag it? You're going to post it online and say, look at this picture of Joe Edelman's that I processed. That's just weird. Like, why would you do that? There's no value to that. None whatsoever. Because if you want to use it for practice, why do you need to show it off to the world? You're a little too hung up in social media BS there, right? The real world is not on social media. It's just not. And social media is not going to teach you how to do anything. So that's not really the key to do it. So, oh, JR, that's awesome, man. I never put that together. You're right, JR. SOOC is 4 letters. And guys, I say it all the time. Don't use 4-letter words. Remember what your mama taught you, right? JR, that's awesome. Thank you. I will put that to use. So, Pigtie, knowledge is never easy or free. It's always a sacrifice involved. And you're right, man. It absolutely is. And, it's different for everybody. For me, I love learning. So, like, I don't see it as difficult. I mean, some things are hard to learn. Don't get me wrong. But I don't see the whole idea as being difficult. And I get it. It's not for everyone. I mean, I totally get it. So, Ajax, awesome, man. Glad to see that you're here. So, yeah, Ajax, I got to meet Ajax face-to-face last Friday. He was at my talk at Fort Worth Camera, and he's talking about the fact that what I did in my talks, I don't do the razzle-dazzle thing where, like, all you ever see is these perfect images. We built these images, like, from scratch. So they saw every test frame. They saw, everything that worked, everything that didn't work. The group that was there, they saw it all. But that way, I'm walking them through everything I'm doing, why I'm doing it, how I'm going to react to things that are taking place, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it was really great to meet you, Ajax. I'm glad I got to see you there. So, Andrew, let's see. Your question here about documentary photos. You do documentary photos for a local theater group. A few people have complained about how they look in photos. Welcome to my world, Andrew. No, what's your view? I.e., is the issue with them, or should I listen to them? Well, Andrew, without seeing your pictures, obviously I can't say, right? When you say documentary for a theater group, do you mean you're shooting? Give me some more feedback here, Andrew. When you're saying documentary for a theater group, are you shooting the shows? In other words, like you're photographing a dress rehearsal, or are you just kind of hanging out like in the dressing rooms, taking pictures while they're getting ready? Because documentary to me sounds like you're trying to tell a story. So like you're hanging out, showing behind the scenes. That's what that sounds like. But then when you bring the theater group thing, I'm like, well, okay, are you actually doing the images that are kind of documenting the show, the performance that may be used for marketing, advertising, etc.? Let me know which it is, and I'll try and give you a little bit more feedback there. But without seeing your pictures, it's kind of hard to say. So, Roquan Picks, thank you for doing this video chat. I've been watching some of your videos and learning a lot in the past month. You write about your approach. Thank you, man. Really, it's not about being right. It's just honestly, it's about trying to get people to just understand where not just me, but where a lot of other photographers have come from and how they've gotten to where they are and in terms of their ability, that type of stuff. So Panoptic cheesesteaks, dreaming of a Philly cheesesteak. Yeah, man, I got to get out west soon. I really got to get out west to see you guys. So hey, by the way, for those of you that maybe are new to me and just checking things out, Panoptic chopsticks. In fact, let me get their URL here. Okay, another really, really good YouTube channel. These guys are actually a lot of fun. I think it's a fetish thing. I'm not sure, but they've managed to come up with a way to kind of combine learning photography with eating food. So I'll let you guys figure out kind of how that plays out. But still, they're pretty cool. They do some really neat stuff. And they're two great guys. They also happen to be two Interfit creative pros. They use Interfit stuff. They use the big boy lights. They won't let me near the big boy lights yet. Interfit only lets me play with the honey badgers. These guys, they do the heavy lifting. They work with the S1 and the S1As. So especially if you guys are looking at those Interfit lights and considering that stuff, check them out. They're a lot of fun. So Charlie Boundy, looking at starting a new business. What are the best first steps to take to have a great start? Oh man, that is a really open-ended question, Charlie. I'm not gonna lie. The best first steps: make sure that you are damn good with your camera. That's the best first step. And then the second step, business, man. Just take the time, do the learning on the proper business steps. Your taxes, your bills, learn about pricing, all that kind of stuff. Most photographers, myself included, back in the day. They just decide, hey, I'm going to make money, and they start, and it's like, okay, I've got a business, and they fail miserably. And I failed miserably at making money. Believe me, okay? You got to go back, and you got to get that business foundation. Understand that, and just in case you're new here, Charlie, I've explained this before, so this is not about you. I'm not picking on you. But I've talked about how professional photographers are idiots. Me too, right? The reason being, nobody ever buys a camera because they expect to make money with it. They buy a camera because they think, hey, it'd be fun, right? And then it turns into something that they really like, and it becomes a passion, and then they get stupid, and they decide, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I could pay my bills with this thing? The problem is the minute you do that, the rules change, man. The rules change big time. So if you are going to turn pro and you're going to start a business, understand that taking pictures is what you get to do if and only if you do business the right way. It's just that simple, man. Okay? So, number one, it's a big step. But number two, the key word in that whole description is business. So those are the things you got to worry about. That's the learning that you got to do. Make sure that and when I say business, guys, I don't mean like get a logo and get business cards. No. Okay? You could become a great photographer without both of those things. I'm talking about learning how to really run a business, meaning set your prices. Worry about profit and loss. Make sure that you're actually earning money. Okay? But believe me, it changes the rules a lot. So just make sure you know what you're getting into. Okay. Biscuit, you realized a little while ago that I was close. You're in Baltimore. Yeah, man. Do I do any talks like that in the area? I do lots of talks that come up in the area. I don't have anything that's scheduled in Baltimore right now, but where you want to be looking, Biscuit, let me bring this up on the screen. On my website, up on the top navigation there, lectures and workshops. If you just click on that tab, and I'll go, whoops, it helps if you actually click. I'll put the URL here in the chat window. There's the schedule for all of my talks. They get updated regularly. Okay. In fact, I have a talk in Florida next March that I have to add in here, and some others that are coming up. They're probably going to get booked. So yeah, just keep an eye on that, man. But the closest thing that I know of to Baltimore, which this is a great event, by the way, Biscuit. It's this fall. No, whoops. And you can sign up for my email newsletter. November 3rd and 4th, the Horizon Photography Summit. It's going to be in Delaware. So, we're talking like 45 minutes north of Baltimore, right? But Horizon Photography Summit, really, really cool event. Going to be a lot of great speakers. I will be there. I'm going to be doing a social media class. I'm going to be doing a fashion portraiture class and something else. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm doing like 3 things down there for that. So I'll be there for that. Definitely check that out. So Andrew Russell, don't worry, I'm going to find you here. So you're shooting. So Andrew's the guy that asked me about doing the documentary photography for the local theater group, and people didn't like the way that he was making them look. So he gave me the feedback, and he said he's mostly shooting on stage, mostly used for Facebook and publicity, but also some behind the scenes stuff. Basically working on producing a book, a copy of which I'll give to the club. All right, so it kind of sounds like you're doing this for free, Andrew, in which case I wouldn't worry too much about what they think. But that being said, I would kind of have to see the pictures, like what does not making them look good mean? Like, are they saying you're making them look fat? Are they saying that you're picking the wrong moments? I did theater photography for quite a few years for the college that my wife teaches at, which is Muhlenberg College in Allentown, Pennsylvania. It's one of the highest ranked liberal arts theater programs in the country. So we're talking hardcore theater program, right? Their students go on to perform in Broadway, they're in television. One of their alum is the female lead in the TV show NCIS. So this is a big theater and acting school, right? So these were people with very, very high standards. So the key to the work that I did was, the moments, really making sure that the photographs portrayed the character and the character's intent and mood, etc. So the pictures that I took, and I shot performances. What I would do is I would shoot dress rehearsals, and they gave me free reign of the theater, during dress rehearsals. I would shoot 2 dress rehearsals of every show, and I was never concerned about making the actor look good. That was not my task. My task was to tell the story of that moment in the show in my photographs. That was the task. That's what a theater photographer does. So that's why I asked, maybe if you're doing backstage stuff and you're making people look weird at that. But if I'm guessing, because I haven't seen your pictures, but if I'm guessing, it sounds like they're having an issue with, maybe you're not kind of catching just quite the right moments. And indeed, it's a challenge, especially if you're shooting stuff in real time, like you're not setting shots up. And believe me, if you have the option, set them up or don't set them up, I am a firm believer that you get much better shots when you don't set the shots up, but that also requires some skill, right? So, Andrew, what you might want to do, I don't know if you remember my Facebook group, but you might want to consider joining the Facebook group. The kind of stuff you're talking about is not the traditional, stuff that we deal with in the Facebook group. So I am not inviting you for months on end to post theater photos, but I would have absolutely no problem if you were to come in and, following the group rules, do a post with several of the shots, and I can try and give you some feedback in there. Or if you really want some more specific feedback, I would go ahead and consider joining my Patreon group, because in Patreon, we would be able to spend a Friday evening during one of the Friday night Zoom chats and, really kind of help you work through that and evaluate some of your images and give you suggestions, etc. So, okay. All right. So let's see. Curtis, do you recommend a speed light as a first lighting purchase for novices getting into lighting? Debating between the TT685 or save up more for the AD200. So Curtis, I think a speed light is a good place to start. But the answer that I give everybody, and I give the same answer, I probably give this answer at least once in every talk chat. So number one, you're going about it all wrong. So you're looking at Godox lights. That's fine. I happen to own both the TT685s and I own the 8200s. However, what you should be looking at is, even though you're just starting with lighting, what system do you want to use 5 years from now? Are you thinking you want to have all Godox 8200s? Are you thinking you want to maybe be using their Explorer 600s? Whatever, okay? Maybe it's not Godox. Maybe it's another brand. And then my advice is, you basically, on paper, plan out your ideal lighting system. Dream. You're not going to spend the money yet, so don't panic, okay? Just dream. What do you want? But do the research. Then buy one. So your initial purchase is going to be one light. And if you're doing like studio work, portraits, so it's going to be one light, a stand, and a transmitter, a trigger, right? And then you learn how to use that one light. No modifiers, no reflectors, no nothing. You learn how to use that one light until you have mastered it. And then you add a reflector, which costs you $1. You can go to a dollar store, buy a reflector for $1, right? Piece of white foam core. And you master using that with the one light. Then you get to step up and do the big boy things. You buy an umbrella, a white shoot-through umbrella, and you master that. Then you can buy a second light and a second stand, and so on. So, you're asking between a traditional speed light, which is a TT685, and then you're asking between the 8200, which is not a speed light. The 8200 is not a speed light. In other words, you can't mount it on your camera. Speed lights mount on camera, has a hot shoe. The 8200 is what they refer to as a pocket flash, which means you must use a trigger and it must be mounted off camera. And it's heavy. So even the idea of maybe like putting it on a bracket on the camera, it's going to make your camera weigh a ton. So they're not bad. Neither of them is bad, but it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And is Godox the system you want to be working with? Godox is a great system, but there's also a lot of other great systems. So if you're leaning more towards studio work, like in the studio, I use the Interfit Honey Badgers. So if you're leaning more towards studio work, I would totally encourage you, look at something like Interfit, the Honey Badgers, etc. If you're going to be doing mostly location work, things like that, and you don't need a ton of power, then indeed, speed lights, pocket flashes, they would be, outstanding ways to go. And indeed, Godox is doing, really nice stuff there. So that's the kind of stuff that's really going to, kind of help. What you might want to do, Curtis, again, I will give you the same suggestion as I did Andrew, but for a different reason. Join my Facebook group. When you join the group and you're admitted to the group, make sure you watch the welcome video. And if you follow the guidelines that I give you in terms of like using the photo tab as a reference, you'll be able to actually get a lot of useful information about, flashes, what people are using, how you might want to combine them, etc. So I would encourage you to, consider that. So, Eric Big Easy, I did do photojournalism. With your street photo book, you keep getting conflicting research as far as releases and such. Do you have any input or tips? Call a lawyer. Call a copyright lawyer. You're going to get nothing but conflicting research. There are people that have published books through publishers for lots of money with no, that involve street photography with no releases. There are people that have published books through publishers for lots of money with no releases and been sued. There are people who have published books through publishers for lots of money and no releases and been sued and won. And there are people who have published photo books through real publishers for lots of money with no releases and been sued and lost. So my advice is, talk to a lawyer if you're going to do something like that. And, that's what you pay them for. Follow their advice. Obviously, safest play, get a release whenever you can. Okay. If you're doing good, this is what I will post to you this way, Eric. And part of this is my opinion, right? So if you are doing good street photography, now, what are we defining as good? Meaning, if you are interacting with your subjects, I know several street photographers that are really, really good, and there are some others that I actually admire. If you look at their work, they don't use telephoto lenses all the time and shoot people from across the street. They frequently, overwhelmingly, interact with their subjects. In other words, their subjects know that they're there. They spend time with their subjects. They get to know their subjects to the point where their subjects kind of forget about them and ignore them. And then their subjects are behaving completely naturally. But the photographer is allowed to be in a much closer space and get a much more intimate image, right? So If you are doing street photography that way, you're already building relationships with your subjects. You're already interacting with these people. So it's not difficult to ask for a simple release. And for the type of thing you're looking at, you don't have to have a big, long legalese release. You know, back in the day, you used to be able to get really simple, basic releases, like a basic image release. And they were printed on 3x5 cards. So, you know, you could do it on a phone, you could do it on a 3x5 card, whatever. But you're asking legal advice. So ultimately, you know, the smart answer for me is to say, hey, don't believe some guy on YouTube or listen to some guy on YouTube. If you're concerned, speak with a lawyer. But the thing I can assure you is you will get tons of different answers researching online, because it's a debate that's going on forever. And you'll hear people brag that they did it with no releases and never had a problem. And you'll hear people talk about the fact that they did it no releases, got sued and lost money. So kind of goes, you know, both ways in that respect. Okay. All right, let's see here. Andy Blakey. Yeah, you can't get that extension yet. He mentioned now you can get an extension lead for the 8200 that allows you to mount it on camera. Why you would want to do that, man, I have no idea. But yes, they did just announce that they are doing that. It's not available yet. You can pre-order it like Amazon and that kind of stuff. But yeah, so it's basically kind of like their Explorer 600. You know, it's an extension. But the difference is this one does have a hot shoe on the base of the head. So yeah, in theory, you could. So let's see here. Scrolling back up. I know there's a bunch of other stuff here that I missed. Doggone it, Panoptic chopsticks. Now you got me thinking cheesesteaks, man. I'm hungry. So let's see here. There's Ajax's note. Go ahead and type some more questions in there, gang. I know I missed a couple, so I want to go back up here. Let's see. Troy, you left your lighting diagram at home. Yep, that'll happen, man. Takes extra time. Let's see. Scrolling back. So, Julie, I took portraits of a 2-year-old, and a family now wants me to take a family portrait. Cool. I found out that the family has 6 children, all under the age of 6. Yikes. Yeah, I'll say yikes. If I did, would I use an umbrella outside or soft boxes? Wow. Okay, so, you know, Julie, I think oh, hi, Lynn. I see Lynn's here. So, Julie, I think the answer there is... it depends. Here's what it depends on. Number one, are you working alone, or are you going to work with an assistant? So if we're talking 8 people, right? So you've got 6 kids, all under the age of 6, and 2 adults. That's going to be chaos beyond all belief. If it's just you and the parents, I think you're taking a big risk in the first place, regardless of how you light it. So let's leave lighting out of the equation for a second, right? Let's just talk about the process. You're going to be dealing with 2 parents that are going to be frazzled beyond belief, because 6 kids under 6. So that, you know, we would assume you've got a 5, a 4, and a 3-year-old. Even the 2-year-old's probably mobile, and then that leaves you the 2 youngest ones. My God, that's like insane. But nonetheless, okay, they're the only 2 that aren't going to give you a hard time, other than potentially crying the whole time, right? So that's like 4 little toddlers and 2 adults. So that basically means, you know, those parents are going to be fried. So the first thing I would say to you is I would want to have an assistant or 2 that are, you know, not to be... you know, stereotype here, but I would pick 2 female assistants who are potentially moms themselves, who are good with kids. That way, you know, as far as the mobile kids go, everybody's matched, because you want to take as much stress and pressure off the kids as possible. So your 2 assistants, their task is going to be corral kids, entertain kids, motivate kids, right? So that you can focus on keeping mom and dad calm, keeping mom and dad engaged, etc. Now, let's get to the lighting. The challenge now is, are you going to be able to actually corral the kids? If you've got a team and you've done this before and you feel confident that you can corral the kids, light it however you want to light it, because you're going to be able to corral the kids. Since you don't sound like you have a plan for corralling the kids and keeping the kids engaged, and since it doesn't sound like you're going to have help, I would be really reluctant to try and use lighting at all, because the problem that you're going to have is, and I'm not even getting into the whole like liability aspect if a kid knocks over a light stand or that kind of stuff. I'm just talking about getting the kids where the light is, right? The challenge is going to be, managing them. So that being the case, I would want to try and find open shade and a nice background where I can shoot not wide open, but at a fairly wide aperture to minimize my depth of field, also to use a telephoto lens. But honestly, Julie, I would dramatically, aggressively encourage you, get help before you do it, and have help there. It's one of those scenarios where it's going to be very beneficial to you to have people that are going to be able to help you corral the kids and manage the the whole process. So so that would be my recommendation. Okay. All right. So let's just see here. Let's see. Alexander is naming Ultra properly. Yeah, no, I mean, a name's a name, but some people like to know that they're getting it right and kind of being correct. So that's all good. So let's see here. Gemma, you asked about the video where I critiqued your photo. It's on my Facebook page, okay? And there's actually links to it in the group. I did see your message, and I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to respond to it. There are links to it in the group, but it's on my personal Facebook page. I did that review open to the public that night, okay? So, all right, I think I got all of the back stuff, so let's catch up here now. All right. So, Pictai, what are your thoughts on long exposure photography, and do you think it's overused, or is it still a valid technique? Well, okay, so, are a lot of people out there doing like light trails and all that kind of stuff now? Sure, it's trendy, but it's not new. So one of the things that I've learned, Pictai, doing this YouTube stuff, right, and teaching people, people get all excited about something like, the long exposure, technique, like it's the coolest thing since Swiss cheese because they've never seen it before, when in fact it's been around forever, right? But that's because there's new people coming into, photography. There's new people picking up cameras and that. So things do tend to become kind of trendy, become really exciting, become overused, overdone. Sure. Part of that is, I look at it, it's almost no different than news. We get so tired of hearing this or that about, what's happening in the news or what happened in the news, because, we have a 24/7 news cycle now, which, 2-3 decades ago, well, 4 decades ago, we didn't have that, right? So you didn't get stuff just, constantly pounding on you about it. I think really the key to the long exposure stuff is if it's going to allow you to make a great image, there's no such thing as overusing it, okay? What I do think is unfortunate is that a lot of people will go ahead and find something like that and then copy it. Well, so actually, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example from a YouTuber whose work you guys know that I admire tremendously, Mr. Gavin Hoey, okay? Gavin is awesome. He does work that's kind of similar to what I do, but I would say actually his is a lot more interesting than what I do. But what I see people frequently do is he will do one of his, little scenes where he's creating like a snow scene in the studio or something like that. And he shows the step-by-step, very detailed. He tries to, do very detailed tutorials like I do. And then a week later, you will see people posting pictures that are clearly copies of what he did. The problem is they suck by comparison. Why? Because they're copies. Copies are never as good as the original, ever. So, and that's lazy. To me, even though they went to all the effort to do all the things that Gavin did, that's lazy. And that's where I see a lot of the stuff you're talking about, Pictai, in terms of, is it overused? Just copying somebody, that's a learning task. I would never, I've copied many, many, many things in my career, many things. But I would never show it to the world and say, here, look what I did. I would never post it on social media and say, look, look, look. I wouldn't even post on social media and say, look, I managed to do the same thing Gavin Hoey did. Why? Like, where's the pride in that? And there's certainly no creativity in that. That's the personal learning that a photographer should be doing behind the scenes. But then what you do is you take that technique and that entire concept that you learned from Gavin Hoey, and you find a way to make it your own. You reapply it to another theme, to another concept. That is true creativity. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's an issue in any way that people do long exposures. It's just a matter of, are they doing something that's been done a bazillion times before and their version of it is boring, but they still chose to show it to the world, or are they going to, turn to something of their own? So, David Fox, I have not shown the Lady Di images, but they are finally being scanned. I literally have about 1,000 transparencies that are out right now being scanned. As soon as I get everything back, I promise to show you. For those of you that don't know, I did have a run-in, so to speak, with Lady Di back in the 1980s. Got to take some pictures of her. These are not overly special pictures, but it was just a really cool experience, etc. So I will share them as soon as I get all my scans back. I promise you guys. Okay. So, Biscuit, if I ever dealt with trying to recover corrupt raw files, they show up with weird color blocks, worth it or trash it and start over. Usually if you're showing them, if the files are showing you've got weird color blocks or like lines through them, that's a flawed file. So you're pretty much going to start over. Okay. Recovering files is usually like, lost, deleted files, but a corrupted file, I've never done anything with actually recover them. And I'm not sure what kind of success you would potentially have. So Daniel Rainey, haven't taken family portraits, but when having family pictures taken, they use rewards like M&Ms for a couple of good shots. Yeah, trust me, with little kids, man, bribe away. Like, seriously, you do literally whatever works. So Chaz Madge, are a lot of photographers doing tutorials on YouTube because it's hard to make a living as a photographer nowadays? No, Chaz. Actually, I don't think there's a single photographer on YouTube making tutorials because it's hard to make a living as a photographer. I really don't. I think you're kind of misunderstanding what's happening there. There are a lot of photographers making YouTube tutorials that are not and have never been full-time photographers. Yes. Now, is that bad? No. But, maybe some of them could be a little bit more honest about that. So it's all a matter of kind of knowing, where the person's coming from, what their experience level is. When you go to college, right? If you go to college, most colleges, you can look up the professors on their websites and see their CV, their curriculum vitae, and understand, what their background is. So if you choose to take a class, not that any college kid ever does this, right? But you can. That information's there. You can make an informed decision about this person that you're learning from. Certainly, there are people teaching photography on YouTube. They're teaching with very little experience. They've been shooting for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Now, out of those people that do that, some of them teach from what they know. And they're very good at doing that. Others try to teach like they know everything. And they really suck because they're both misleading and, they're not helping people. But you have to understand that, doing tutorials on YouTube, Chaz, you don't make any money. I'll tell you guys right now, I make about $500 a month off of YouTube. There it is, right? I'm not paying my bills off of YouTube. YouTube is what drives my income. YouTube is what gets camera clubs, photo organizations, etc. to hire me to come speak. It's what gets people interested in having me teach workshops, all that kind of stuff. That's the catalyst for all of my income. But I'm not making money off of YouTube. So I believe me, that's not why people are doing YouTube, okay? Because they can't make a living as a photographer. The fact of the matter is, it is no harder to make a living as a photographer today as it was 50 years ago. It's simply not. So it's the biggest joke ever when I hear that. It's like, oh, digital photography, smartphones, can't make money. Bullshit. Okay, because we can go down the list and there are photographers making 6 and 7 figures a year and doing it really pretty easily. Now, when I say pretty easily, meaning they've got a system down and it works. Okay? So, but they're working their butts off. Big time. So, people want to be able to, work 2 or 3 days a week and make $1 million a year. Well, good luck. You know what? That's not going to happen. So, but it is no harder to make money as a photographer today than it was 30, 40 years ago. It's simply not. Okay. You just got to be willing to work your butt off. And that's the case with pretty much any creative endeavor. I don't care if you're a painter or an artisan that does, jewelry or whatever. Okay. Those are not traditional jobs where somebody's going to hand you a paycheck and get lots of money. Those are jobs where you're going to work your butt off, period. But the people that do that are also people that usually do it out of the passion for the process, not the money. You hear me calmly talk about all the business mistakes I made when I was younger and how I learned so much about running a business. It's because money's never been the priority for me. Stupidly, in many cases, it's never been the priority for me. The priority is the process. That's where my passion lies. Trust me, I wish I made more money. I wish I had more money, but that more money is not going to make me happy. Getting to do the things that I do, that's what makes me happy, and I'm fine with that. So, James Tehan, is there a good resource to learn Capture One software? Yes, their website. Literally, it's the best resource in the world. They've got tons and tons and tons of outstanding videos. And then the other thing, by the way, James, for a resource, time and effort. You are not going to learn Capture One by watching a couple of videos or taking a workshop or any of that kind of stuff. And by the way, if you own Capture One, they do lots of really, really good webinars, live webinars that you can then also watch recorded. So Capture One does an excellent, excellent job at educating. I would be the first to say to you, ignore anything you find on YouTube unless it's done by Capture One. Their tutorials are awesome. So, okay. Let's see. Going back up here. Talked about that. S. Roberson. I am a beginner DSLR user, Canon T5i. Can I begin with flash photography or begin on A+? What is A+? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Give me a little bit more info there. Let's see. Going back up. Gordon Smith. Clean question. I have a Speedlight softbox which has become slightly yellowed from dust and such due to outdoor use. Any cleaning suggestions, or just replace the softbox or leave it slightly yellow because you get a warmer color from it? For years I still wish I had it actually. I had a huge Shimura 4-foot by 6-foot softbox. This thing was a beast and was very yellowed, but it just gave me the nicest, warmest skin tones. It was like suntan. Somebody had a nice golden tan. Gordon, the key to it is it depends on if you're using it with other lights or not. If you're just using that one light, you can color correct for that one light. It's not that big a deal. And of course, it depends on how yellowed. You're saying it's slightly yellowed. That says to me it's probably not going to be that much of a problem. So I would say, clean or replace when it's interfering with your ability to create good pictures. If it's not interfering with your ability to create good pictures, then no need to do any of that. As far as the cleaning, whatever brand it is, go to the manufacturer's website and maybe email them or see if they have any information like an FAQ where they talk about how to clean them. Some companies do, some don't. But yeah, I've worked with very yellow softboxes. I actually really liked it. So again, it all depends on your style, your preference, etc. But I would only replace it if it's interfering with your ability to do the kind of work that you need to do. That's kind of how I would approach it. Okay. So let's see. Nerd 45. Am I a fan of Greg Allman? Asking because of your shirt. This is not because of Greg Allman, but yeah, Greg Allman's awesome. So. Roger McLeod, Joe wants scrapple and eggs for breakfast. Now scrambled eggs is what I talk about at the end of the egg video. So Adam Batchelor, what's scrapple? You have to be from Pennsylvania to know what scrapple is. So I'll explain that another time. So I think, guys, I've actually got everybody. So did I get everything? Tom, these are inspirational. I'm glad, man. I appreciate it. Mario, you got YouTube notifications over an hour after the show started. Dude, I'm sorry. I don't know why that is, but you'll be able to watch it recorded. It'll be there, okay? Biscuit, does knowing Lightroom decently well help with Capture One, or is it all completely different? It helps a little, okay? But the bottom line is, yeah, you're going to have a learning curve with Capture One. And I'm not saying that to discourage anybody, but here's the thing. Like, if you have not, I will tell you this, Biscuit, if you have not mastered Lightroom, so you're saying decently. So that says to me you should not purchase Capture One, okay? Capture One is an amazing program. Capture One is ridiculously powerful. Capture One, it's the bomb. But Capture One is very advanced. Capture One is pricey. Capture One has a serious learning curve. So, you know, if you just know Lightroom decently, and obviously I haven't seen your work, right? So I don't mean this as an attack, but I'm just kind of generalizing. If you know Lightroom decently, that leads me to believe that you have not advanced to the point where you actually need Capture One. So I would encourage you maybe to continue to master Lightroom, because once you master Lightroom, even though you're still going to have a steep learning curve in Capture One, I promise you the things that you learn by mastering Lightroom will all make your learning curve in Capture One easier. That's kind of the key there. So, okay. Chaz, you got a late notification as well. That's interesting, man. Guys, I have no idea. I'll see if there's any notices in the resource sections for YouTube that they were having issues. But I know actually earlier today they were having some issues with some of the coding on the channel pages, but it wasn't. I don't think it was impacting you know, any of this kind of stuff. So I'll let you know. So. All right, gang. So look, it looks like we are all caught up. So I am going to take advantage of that and say goodnight. So a couple of things real quick. Don't forget to check out Fort Worth Photo Fest if you're in the Texas area. If there's any chance you come into Chicago, make sure that you check out of Chicago, and or of course, just make sure that you check in on my website to keep track of my education list and all the speaking engagements that I have coming up and all that stuff. In fact, here one more time, I'll put that URL in the chat window that you have it. I would love to meet you in person. So I do have a video coming out this weekend that is about the DIY Justin clamp. I told you guys about that last week. It'll be releasing this week. If you don't know what a Justin clamp is, you can Google it or you can wait for my video. But this is going to show you how to build a Justin clamp. Super, super simple for like literally like less than half the price of buying one off the shelf. I'm also coming up on my 6-month mark as a Micro Four Thirds user with Olympus. So over the course of the next 2 weeks, I'm going to put together a follow-up video, which for those of you that are Nikon, Canon, Sony people, you're not going to care. That's okay. No problem. But I'm going to put together a follow-up video 6 months in with my thoughts, my observations, what I've learned, all that good stuff. You know, just as a follow-up, I had a lot of people asking me for that. So I figured, all right, 6-month mark is a good point to, you know, kind of be following up with that. Let you guys know about, you know, what lenses I'm using the most, what I'm finding is working really well for me with lenses, all that kind of stuff. And we will, of course, be back next week with another TogChat on Wednesday. For those of you that are part of my Patreon group, I'll look forward to seeing you Friday night for another Zoom chat. So we had a lot of new people here tonight. That's a good thing. But if you're new, there's something, and I haven't mentioned it the last couple of TogChats, so I should mention it now. I am honored and I appreciate that you folks take the time to follow me and learn from me. It means a lot to me. But I need you to make me a promise. So we've been on here for just about 90 minutes. This is going to be a 90-minute show tonight. I'm like a minute away from 90 minutes, right? So if you watch the 90 minutes of this show, you owe me 180 minutes of practice or time with the camera in your hands using it before you come back and watch another TogChat. I love having you guys here, but and talking about photography, God, I love to talk about photography. I could do it for hours and hours and hours. But you can't become a photographer watching or listening to YouTube. You got to go pick up that camera. You got to shoot. So promise me, gang, get that practice time in. For a lot of you newbies, go watch that egg video. And whatever you do, remember these words.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now go and pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.